Hey F1 fans, it's me again. Let me catch you up on what's going on in F1. First off, I want to do a disclaimer. I'm a new F1 fan. I started watching F1 in like October, November of last year. So there is things that I know and things that I don't know. I am trying to talk to beginners as a beginner, and I am just trying to communicate what I see with my eyes about what's happening in F1, because I need someone to talk to about this. I really do. If you watched my last video, you can understand that F1 entails a lot of things. It's not just about racing, it's not just about cars, it's also about drivers, and there's a lot of things that go on in the background. Most of my sources are from F1 articles and a Facebook fan group, and my F1 bestie Kristen. She's been watching F1 since 2022. She knows the lore. I'm just like trying to like make notes and like keep account of everything, because a lot happens in F1 like behind the scenes. Just to reiterate, this is a space for me to share my thoughts about what is currently happening in F1. I have thoughts and feelings and I got to talk about them. This video is going to be basically just me recapping the Australian race. All right, here we go. So before I get into talking about the Australian race, I have to talk about the new regulations. Now, as a beginner, from a beginner, this is all you need to know. Basically, in 2026, regulations changed for the engines, and now instead of just like a regular V8 or like a motor engine, they now use a hybrid engine, which means that they have to race while thinking about how to spin their batteries. That sounds weird because it sounds like just a big phone, but whatever. So basically, as drivers now can only overtake, as in like pass the person ahead of them, if they have enough charge in their batteries. And the way to get charge in your batteries is by braking. So a lot of F1 circuits, if you watch the last video, you see that there's multiple different circuits every season in F1, and all the circuits have different kind of corners. They all have about at least 10 or more corners. I want to say the minimum is 14, but don't quote me on that. So every time a driver drives through the corners, they'll brake, and depending on how much they brake, they'll be refilling their batteries, and that will help them to overtake the cars in front of them on the straights. And for now, that is all you need to know about the new regulations, because they will be getting slightly changed. I have an article linked down below about the new changes that are going to come up in the Miami Grand Prix, which will be the first weekend in May 2026. All right, now let's talk about Australia. So the Australia Grand Prix was the first race of the season. It happened in Albert Park, where it always does. Albert Park is a street circuit. It's called a street circuit because it's not used exclusively for F1. During the rest of the weekends, it is a park. It's like a regular park. People just use it year-round, except for on an F1 weekend, they shut it down, and it becomes an F1 track. Yay! So I'm gonna very quickly recap the practice sessions. What you need to know about FP1, FP2, and FP3. Ferrari and Red Bull were doing really great during those practice rounds. And then you had Mercedes and McLaren's come in during like FP2, like starting to shine, and they were also shining during FP3. So by the end of the practice round, it was kind of like a mixed bag of teams. It was Mercedes, McLaren, Red Bull, and Ferrari that were all within like the top 5 for all 3 practice rounds. And then we moved on to the qualifying session. During the qualifying session, out of nowhere, Mercedes started dominating. Like during FP 1, 2, 3, they were just all like, yeah, we're here. We're kind of gonna be like in the top 5, the top 3, but we're just kind of here. They were just racing regular. And then qualifying came and they went flat out. Front row lockout. That's what they said. And they did it. So George Russell got pole position. Kimi Antonelli got P2. And P3 was Isaac Hadjar. I haven't talked about Kimi Antonelli. Kimi Antonelli, when I started watching F1 back in November, I was like, do you see this person? Like, do you see this driver? He's actually driving really well. And people were like, oh, it's because he's in a Mercedes car. But that doesn't mean he'll automatically be a good driver. And so I'm always all like, look at Kimi, he's doing great. And so for him to get P2, I was like, that's our Kimi. Isaac Hadjar got P3. Now this is exciting because Isaac, he joined Racing Bulls last year, which is Red Bull's junior team. They go by VCARB, Visa Cash App Racing Bulls, VCARB. Last season wasn't the best. He did have a lot of car issues, but he did get a podium! He got a podium last year. We're all excited about that. So we always knew he had it in him. And when he got promoted to Red Bull from the junior team, Racing Bulls, to Red Bull Racing, and he seems nervous. We were like, congratulations! He's like, good. And so we all know Red Bull is not for the weak. They will chew you up and spit you out. Okay, I also wanted to mention some other things that happened during qualifying. Max Verstappen crashed in Q1, so he's going to be P20 during the race. There are 22 drivers, so he's going to be, the third from the bottom. Carlos didn't get to finish. I think during FP3, he had an issue with his car. I wrote it down. So he had an issue with the energy recovering system, so the ERS for short. So he didn't finish FP3, but he participated in FP1 and 2. So that was a bummer. Lance Stroll had a damage with the oil line, but if you are already watching F1, you would know that is not the only problem Aston Martin's going to have. Anywho, that covers qualifying. Now we're going to talk about the race day, and so we're just going to do a quick recap. So pre-race, before they get onto the grid, during the entry lap, Oscar Piastri, who was going to be P5, had a crash. So he could not participate in the race. And then Nico Hülkenberg had some technical issues. Did I write down what it was? Nope, it just said technical issues. He also couldn't participate in the race. It looks like they were trying to fix it before the race, and they were trying to get him out into the pit lane to be able to race. The pit lane just means that you're in the very, very back. All right, so the race starts. And remember what I said previously, the top 3 are going to be George Russell, Kimi Antonelli, and Isaac Hadjar. And the 5 lights go out. And Kimi and George Russell have a poor launch. Like, they had a really bad start. Kimi dropped down from like P2 all the way to P6. And then Russell was like fighting for his life, trying to keep first position. And out of nowhere, the rookie this year, he went from P9 all the way up to P6. Like, that boy was not playing. And I had some strong words before the season starts where I'm all like, why would they? Is he going to be okay? Is he going to be good? But this boy, he saw an opportunity and he went for it. He passed Antonelli, Norris, and Hadjar. It was incredible. And you're like, that wasn't the starting lineup, Odin. It's because during turn 1, like, a lot of people got really weird launches. And the corner to turn 1 is always like a hot mess. So you got to see how everyone comes out. Not everyone comes out in the same place. So at the moment, the top 3 is Leclerc, Russell, and Hamilton, with Lindblad right behind them. And then for 9 laps, Leclerc and Russell fight it out for number 1. Because of the new car systems, I actually haven't seen a race where there's like so many overtakes, like back to back during 1 lap. They're just like fighting it out. At first, I was like, I don't know why we're doing hybrids. Like, it doesn't even make sense. But now seeing it, I am like, wow. It actually is very entertaining. I was like, who's going to come out on top? Is it going to be Leclerc or is it going to be Russell? They were fighting it out almost the whole race. But we got to stop and pause here to just send one up for Colapinto, who did not do anything wrong, but got a 10-second penalty because his mechanics were still touching his car after the 15-minute signal already went off. So he got a 10-second stop-go penalty, which basically means when he goes into the pit lane, he has to stop completely. Nobody can touch his car. And then he just has to leave. They can't even change his tires. And that is one of the worst penalties you can get. Like, that is diabolical. It was his mechanics, but you know what? Rules are rules. Unless you're a favored driver, the rules don't apply. But we're not talking about controversial things right now. Now, during lap 11, we gotta pour one out again. Isaac Hadjar has smoke coming out of his engine. And he slowly crossed to a stop, and then his car loses all power. He is out of the race, ladies and gentlemen. He is out of the race. And that makes 3 people that are just down for the count. You have Oscar Piastri and Nico Hülkenberg, who didn't even get to start the race. And now you have Isaac Hadjar. The third one down. Guys, we're sad. He got P3 and he could have done such great things. Flashback. Last season, I feel like I'm talking about a TV show, last season on Formula 1. During the Australia Grand Prix, which was also the first race of the season last season, Isaac Hadjar did not start the race because he crashed during the formation lap. So basically, Australia has not been kind to our dear friend, Isaac. Moment of silence. Now let's continue. When Isaac had to retire from the race, the virtual safety car came out. And drivers usually pit during a safety car or like a yellow flag because they know that you will save time because all of the cars have to slow down. If you go into the pits now and change your tires, you get to save time that you would otherwise lose later on in the race. So a lot of drivers did that. Ferrari, Verstappen, Berman, Bortoleto, and Perez all stayed out. And Ferrari instantly regretted their decision. I feel like it was instantaneous because they were like, oh, we should have pitted. But I think, if I'm remembering right, they had already like passed the pit entry when the virtual safety car came out. They missed their chance, and then coming back around, they didn't want to like risk going in. Now we have to pour another one out for Alonso. He also retired. Let me tell you the backstory about what's going on. So Fernando Alonso races for the team Aston Martin. Aston Martin took what I am told to be a legend in F1 history, Adrian Newey. They took him from Red Bull and brought him to Aston Martin to design their cars, right? So they got Adrian Newey, and they also got the Honda engine. And so these two things weren't the only reason, but a really solid reason why Red Bull was dominating for the previous 4 years before 2025. They had a really good car designer and a really good engine. And so now Aston Martin has those two things. You would think that having these two things would help them be able to develop a faster car. You would be mistaken. The Honda engine Aston Martin got from Honda makes the car very shaky. Like, it's not just all like, oh, you're driving really fast, it's shaky. Like, no, shaky to the point where it can cause nerve damage if you're in it for too long. That's how shaky. And Alonso had to retire from the race. They said it was because of technical issues, but now we know what the technical issues are. Back to the race. So Antonelli and Lindblad are doing very well. They're within the top 5. And this is like lap number 15 of like 54? Lap 15 of 58. So it's still pretty good for a rookie in his first season to be within the top 5 during his first F1 race. The top 3 are Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, and George Russell. Russell is currently setting the fastest lap time, so let's see if he can get ahead of the rest. And then on lap 19, we pour one out for Valtteri Bottas. He has to retire because he is with a new F1 team. He's with Cadillac. This is Cadillac's first season in F1, and so we all knew that they weren't going to do well. Cadillac is going to be working out a lot of kinks because it is their first Formula 1 car. So they're just going to be in the back. Like, they might be retiring for a while until they figure out how to manage everything. But, you know, it is what it is. When Bottas retired, he was trying to see if he can get his car off the tracks into the pits, and then it died right in front of the pit lane. And so they had to close the pit lane, even though now there's a virtual safety car out and cars do have to go at a reduced speed. This would be the ideal time to pit. They can't pit because Bottas is at the pit lane entry. So Ferrari still hasn't pit. And they're just like kicking themselves still. Lewis Hamilton even asked, hey, can you make sure you don't pit me with Leclerc? Because I don't want to double stack. And double stacking is usually when a team will pit both of their drivers at the same time. And because they do that, the driver behind the first driver will lose a significant amount of time than the driver ahead of them. So rather than double stack, as in have them both come into the pits at the same time, they will just pit one at a time while the other one still laps around. And when that one's done, the other one will come through and pit. So Hamilton's asked to not double stack and to make sure they pit separately since they're not pitting under the safety car. Meanwhile, during lap 21, Gasly and Ocon start duking it out. So basically, Gasly overtakes Ocon. Ocon, I guess, like tries to overtake Gasly again, but then he's late on the brakes and Gasly ends up hitting him. And so now Gasly has front wing damage. They were under investigation, but it really didn't go anywhere because it was just a racing incident. And then somewhere else in the background, sometime before lap 24, Liam Lawson and Sergio Perez, who is also racing for Cadillac, is like duking it out for P16. They ended up having wheel-to-wheel contact, but that was also deemed a racing incident. No further investigation took place. And then Ferrari finally gets to pit. First, Leclerc comes in. What lap are we on? Okay, during lap 26, Ferrari finally pits. Leclerc goes first. And then a couple laps later, Hamilton finally pits. During lap 30, the top 5 are Russell, Antonelli, Leclerc, Hamilton, and Norris. Then during lap 34, the virtual safety car comes out again because there's debris all over the track, which usually happens in Australia, there's a gravel trap. They keep just running through it and like gravel just gets everywhere. And so eventually during some part of the race, they usually bring out the safety car to clean up all the gravel. It's just always an issue. Now around lap 40, I noticed that Lance Stroll is no longer in the race. He also races for Aston Martin. Aston Martin, it's shaky. Like their whole like engine is shaky. It shakes the whole car. It's crazy. So he's out of the race and he retires. By lap 40, he's just gone. And so is his teammate, Fernando Alonso. All right, so by lap 40, the top 5 are Russell, Antonelli, Leclerc, Hamilton, and Verstappen. Now, I want you to remember, at the start of the race, where was Max Verstappen? Max Verstappen, who didn't finish qualifying, who had to dip out at Q1 because of a crash, who qualified for P20, is now in the top 5. Amazing. He's like in the back of the pack. He will overtake everybody and just be within the top 5 casually. Crazy. To me. Because I'm new. I'm just amazed by everything. Not much happens after that. It basically is the same lineup that I just told you. The top 3 who ends up winning is Russell, Antonelli, and Leclerc. They win the Australian Grand Prix, and that's the podium finishes. Okay, now let's talk about the interviews. So usually after a race, they do post-race interviews of the top 3 drivers. And here is what they had to say. George Russell talked about how happy he was to have the first race win of the season with all the new cars and regulations, how grateful he was to the team for building such an amazing car. And he talked about how it was a real battle between him and Leclerc during the beginning of the race. But ultimately, he's happy of where he ended up and how he placed. And then they interviewed Kimi Antonelli. He said that he was very happy as well being able to get P2 and how difficult it was to get the race start. But ultimately, they ended up in a really good place. They finished Mercedes 1-2, so that was really good for them. He did acknowledge that he didn't get a very good start, but then he is happy where he ended up. He also talked about how powerful the overtakes are in the new cars. Charles Leclerc, who is newly married, he said that the race was rather tricky. He said that in the beginning of the race, he and Russell were just back and forth, overtaking one another for about 10 laps. Defending a position, there's a massive speed difference because remember, they have to charge the batteries. You can use the batteries to overtake people and get more speed, and the way you charge the batteries is by braking at the corners. He said it's really good that the cars have flashing lights in the back because it shows you when a car is about to slow down, so that way you can try to avoid crashing into them. He even went on to say that P3 was the best that they could do for today. He said that Mercedes obviously had the fastest car, they had more speeds. He said even if he had pitted during that first virtual safety car, that he wouldn't have had enough pace to be able to win the race. It's very interesting that he would acknowledge that even though Ferrari did do well during the practice round and they were confident in their cars after the Bahrain testing. I saw a couple interviews where they're like, the car is so much better than it initially was. So there was a lot of improvement made. And so for him to say that, hey, there was a lot of improvement, but Mercedes still had the fastest car during that race. It's crazy. He was all like, maybe I'm wrong, but like from what I saw, we wouldn't have been able to catch them even if we had pitted and had fresher tires. Crazy to me that he said that, but whatever. My final thoughts about this race is that the podium did not surprise me because Antonelli and Russell did really well during qualifying and Leclerc placed 4th during qualifying. So the fact that he got podium wasn't a surprise. Ferrari has been doing really well with this new car, even though like last year they're like, we don't know about this car, it's kind of driving a little weird, but they have come a long way and they're doing really well. The real surprise for me was Lindblad's performance. He blew me out of the water because I was questioning whether or not he was experienced enough to be in F1, and he did amazing. He finished P8, which was really good for a driver in his rookie season to finish within the top 10, and so we're happy to see it. Also, we are happy with Behrman. He finished P7, which is like really good because Haas is a midfield team car. At least like during last season, I didn't really see that a lot from Haas. But Behrman has been getting really good because last year was his rookie year and he has made a lot of improvements since then. And we're just really proud of Behrman. We're just like, yay! We're just happy to see that he finished within the top 10 and he just had a great race, in my opinion. We can also cheer on Colapinto. Colapinto had a rough season last. Honestly, we shouldn't talk about the car that he was driving. And so I'm very excited. Colapinto did very well this race. He finished P14, which is still a win. It's still a win. Congratulations, Colapinto. And we can also just give props to Antonelli. He did not get a good start, but after falling 5 places from like P2 to P6, he did fight his way back up to the top, and then he was able to maintain his position, which just showed how good of a driver he is to not only get back up to 2nd place, beating out Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, getting back up to P2, and being able to hold that position for the rest of the race. Round of applause. Good job, Kimi. For Max Verstappen to go from P20 all the way up to P6 will always be iconic. I feel like I will always just be in awe of like just how much overtake he can do during a race where he can start from the bottom and now we're here and just be within the top 10, if not the top 5. That'll all just blow me away. I mean, as a baby fan, I'm just always amazed by that. So round of applause for them. It was kind of surprising that Mercedes was just hiding this whole time. I thought that Ferrari was going to do really well. I also expected more from McLaren because they have been slowly dominating the past few years, but the regulations did change. So that was probably a big factor of like why they didn't do so well this race, because technically the regulations were the same roughly for about 5 years. So McLaren had time to build the fastest car. So when they were like at the top, like the regulations just changed. So then they had to like start kind of from scratch to build another car again. And so we weren't surprised, but I was surprised. Another thought is that it's kind of sad we didn't get to see more from Isaac Hadjar. It's a bummer that his race ended so early because it looked like he had a lot of potential. Like, we've been waiting for it and I just wanted to see how well he was gonna do. I just wanted to see how he's gonna finish. Sometimes it's not even the driver's fault. The car just like gives up on you. And it's a new season, new regulations. We're just gonna chalk it up to that. Alright, just to wrap up this segment, there are just a few things I want to make sure everyone's aware of. Cadillac is a new team to Formula One. This is their first time designing a race car and actually participating in an F1 race season. So they have their work cut out for them, which is one of the reasons why they got former F1 drivers to drive their car. Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas have driven for F1 for a number of years. They both drove for prominent teams. Sergio Perez, whose nickname is Checo, raced for Red Bull Racing, and Valtteri Bottas has raced for Mercedes for a number of years. They both raced for top teams, so they have knowledge of like how cars should be, how they should feel, and they can give feedback, which is probably why Cadillac had them come on as drivers, among other reasons. And if y'all know more reasons, you guys can put it down in the comments. And another thing to note is that Williams currently has one of the heaviest cars in the season. They're like 26 kilos heavy. That is a massive amount. They're the heaviest car that's there. They are a team that have been with Formula One for decades. They've been around. For them to be that overweight is kind of crazy. I'm like, Cadillac weighs less than you and they're the newer team. But you know what? Let's not throw shade. We're just hoping that they can cut the weight down so that way we can see them just race. And then lastly, Audi, who used to be Kick Sauber, has been doing really well. Like during this race, they did amazing, which is kind of crazy because Kick Sauber was in the back of the pack with Alpine, but even Alpine is doing well. And I'm actually very impressed. I can't wait to see them get more out of their car. Well, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. I'll keep you updated on everything that is happening. I will try to make videos on each race to tell you my thoughts, to share what happened, and we'll just see where we go from here. All right, bye. Hi, Ogin from the editing room. I am sorry it took so long. I had to cut out an hour of me just yapping. Because I cut so much yapping, the video tends to jump. And I'm sorry for all the jumpiness. I'm going to try to record in a more cohesive way of storytelling. And also, I wanted to include a lot of visuals for you guys so that way all my beginners out there can see who I'm talking about when I say a name and like what the teams are and what their final results look like. I wanted to include all of that, but I didn't know how to include all of that. So I had to like teach myself how to make all these things so that way everything can be kind of cohesive for you and you can follow along the story. I will not be able to catch you guys up by the time the Miami race comes around, but you should watch it. It's gonna be really good. There's a sprint race, and so that's always exciting. And because Miami has a sprint race, it's a perfect way to introduce you to F1 racing. So give it a go. It's available on Apple TV. Or you can watch the racing highlights on Formula One's YouTube channel for free. I hope to see you in the next video. And thank you so much for watching.